Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests in this interview. Now, foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels, kicking off 2 days of foreign and defense discussions. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says Kyiv's top priority is convincing allies to allow Western supply weapons to be used deep inside Russia. Kuleba said that he will also ask ministers to allow the use of air defense capabilities in EU countries, particularly Poland, to protect parts of Ukrainian airspace. Meanwhile, tensions have surfaced in recent days between Poland and Ukraine regarding military aid. Joining us today on TVP World to explore the implications of these events and what this means for the future of Polish-Ukrainian relationship is Jacek Raubo, Director of the Defence24 Analysis Unit. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, and thank you for having me here.
So, two topics I want to get into today. One being, of course, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba's mission in trying to allow Western weapons to strike inside Russia. And then I would like to go a little bit into the exchange between the Ukrainian president and the Polish defense minister when it comes to aid. But first thing first, do you think that the recent incursion into the Kursk region is a good sign that perhaps it is time for the West to unchain Ukraine when it comes to using these weapons inside Russia?
I suppose it's a very visible sign that Western countries which are supporting right now Ukraine in their defense, they are also accepting some offensive actions on the Russian soil without repercussions, without breaking any thin red lines, etc. When we remember, for instance, statements coming from the Kremlin. So I think this barrier of fear is breaking every time when we see another chapter of this war. And I think Western states or West generally is much more flexible right now, also in the context of the use of the sophisticated, sometimes expensive weaponry being sent to Ukraine. So it is a very optimistic sign. Of course, there is, I think, still a lot to discuss between Ukrainian side and also the Western side. But I'm very optimistic about breaking these barriers, mostly from the beginning of this war. We remember 2022 and this approach coming from the West to even stop any larger support with high this mechanized things and also airplanes, more sophisticated weaponry.
Right, like you mentioned, a lot has been discussed and a lot still needs to be discussed. What are some of the shackles that are still holding Ukraine in place? What are some of the restrictions that the Western will still have when it comes to utilizing these weapons inside Russia?
Greatly that you are emphasizing this aspect, because I think there is two sides of one coin. Of course, the first is the most visible one, this debate coming from the Western media, coming from also Polish media, and this open sources debates. On the other hand, I'm much more open for understanding that there is also gray zone. So, of course, we see that there is a lot of barriers still to break between use this weaponry against the targets deeply inside Russia and the practical side of military operations. So I'm much more close to the hypothesis that Ukrainians can do much more than they are pretending in open debate with West. And also West is receiving this opportunity to put a pressure, psychological pressure on Russia that, for instance, they can send a strong message. We are not accepting something, but this is happening. So this is a very difficult task right now to comment this issue, because I think we need to accept that some of operations, some of use of, for instance, more sophisticated weaponry are under the information umbrella, which is right now securing some West and also Ukrainian interests.
Right, so there is actually a lot of nuance going into this. And of course, there's also the fog of war that's kind of obstructing some of the information from actually coming out. And it's going to be a very delicate maneuver when it comes to this situation. Meanwhile, of course, these 2 days meeting, we'll see a lot of foreign ministers discuss these issues, and perhaps in the public and behind closed doors. What are some of the things that you think might come out of it that the public might know, and what are some of your speculations and hypotheses of what could be potentially discussed behind closed doors?
Speculation and hypothesis is the key word for answering your question, because I think from the beginning of military assistance to Ukraine, we need to accept that I think 80% or maybe 70% of that is under the cover of counterintelligence and intelligence issues and security. So they are trying to balance what they want to present and what they need to secure from the public sphere. This is a very acceptable situation when you have a full-scale warfare. I think after any meetings, there is a very important and very valuable message coming to us that West is thinking about support of Ukraine in long-term perspective, not ad hoc, not right now, right here, and we are waiting for your counter-offensive. If it's not fully operational success, we are withdrawing our presence and our military assistance. So I think they are trying to balance this very active this very active messages coming right now, and balance these long-term messages that we will be with you, not only now, not only during this month, this year, but we will support our own values, which are right now under the Russian pressure on your soil. But we understand that this is something, this is a common for us. So I think that we will see a lot of diplomatic statements, a lot of diplomatic words, and we need to accept this because, as I mentioned before, this is a full-scale warfare. This is the full-scale Russian invasion, and Russia is also using their own assets, not only from the military side but also from intelligence side, to try to paralyze this, to try to stop some military assistance actions, but also to destabilize this surrounding debate about this military assistance. So we need to accept that we will recite a lot of words, a lot of diplomatic statements, and because this is a very pragmatic approach to this.
All right, thank you so much for helping us taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of diplomatic statement being made, but of course, when it comes to relaying this message to people, it needs to be as transparent as possible without compromising strategic advantage. So there's definitely a lot of balance to be made here. And of course, this meeting in the next 2 days will be very pivotal, even if it doesn't look like so on the surface level. Really appreciate it. And going to the spat, somewhat of a spat between President Zelensky and the Polish defense minister. Now, there's been a little bit of exchange of Zelensky hoping that they can get MiG-29s from Poland, while there's a little bit of hesitancy on the Polish part, be it President Duda or Prime Minister Donald Tusk, all given a relatively negative answer. What do you think is the contribution to that? And do you think that the argument of the Polish defense minister is indeed sound?
We need to understand that Ukrainian side is using a very stable, from their perspective, tools to put a pressure, constant pressure on the Western states, also on Poland and or even United States, with these statements that we need to have more, we need to have better, we need to have quality and quantity, larger military assistance, because we are fighting and we need to have this very fast. So this is a very stable form of Ukrainian policy toward West from the beginning of this full-scale Russian aggression. On the other hand, we need to accept that Poland sent to Ukraine a lot of things, from land domain to air domain. So right now, Polish MOD, Polish government, Polish president need to secure our own interest, not from the political side, mostly from the military side, because we need to accept that, for instance, F-16s are very valuable for us, but still MiG-29s are a very practical side of our air defense, and we need to have this kind of umbrella under our heads, not only because we need to secure our own airspace, but also we have other valuable tasks which we are inside NATO in which we are participating for our allies, not only partners, strategic partners like Ukraine, but allies. So I fully accept that the Polish side need to balance interest with this long-term military assistance to Ukraine, as I mentioned before, and our own security and defense, not only as a potential action, but as a part of our alliance participation in NATO and also for other partners.
All right, so I think this also echoes what you just mentioned earlier. A lot of times these politicians are pretty much just doing their jobs, and these statements are needed to be made.
The most interesting things are behind this. So,
exactly.
We need to accept this.
Yeah, and then like I think Mr. Kosiniak-Kamysz also pointed out that he understands Zelensky is doing his job, and then he has to do his. And I think kind of behind the scenes there is a consensus and understanding of these type of situation. But when it comes to public perception, though, do you think that these kind of exchanges might be a little bit abrasive and might run the risk of turning the public perception one way or another?
I think this is not the question. This is the situation we are dealing with almost every day. Because after the first emotions, 12 months of war, this defensive posture of Ukraine, right now, the situation inside the public sphere is much more sophisticated and much more delicate. And that's why it is so important for both sides to use some strategic communication tools to not only try to put the pressure on partners, but also to send strong messages to various groups of audience that we are achieving some goals. And finally, we will be inside a common sphere of security. So this is the task not only for Poland, this is not the task only for the Western societies, this is the task also for Ukrainians, that they need to balance this strong posture that we are fighting, we need more, and we need to have this because we are fighting against Russian aggression, which might be spread to your own countries. They need to balance this toward the new emotions in Western societies. This is a very difficult task, but we know this from the strategic communication studies that this is possible forms of, for instance, getting some lessons learned from the past and implementing this right now, right here. So this is not the mission impossible. I think both sides are really open for this common values, and they can implement this into the practical side of strategic communication toward both societies.
All right, so behind and under this turbulent surface, there's still a lot going on down there. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks again for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you for the invitation.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.